Hi guys, Yuki here back with Seduce V2, The Demon War, Matthew's Route, Part 1. I know this has taken me a bit longer than before, but right now I'm actually on a marathon of recording before I go to hopefully get this done before Friday because I'm leaving Saturday. And I won't be able, well, I don't know, it's still only up in the air if I'll be able to record or not, but because, vacation or whatever, but we shall see. For now, let's just get on with this, and hopefully we can get through this, and I don't know, we'll see how far we get. 4 women drop down from the tear and somehow manage to fall into the arms of the incubi behind Matthew.
Whoa!
I gotcha!
Whoa! Are you okay? Eric!
Love, I've got you!
James!
Whoa! Are you alright?
I stared wide-eyed. Their wives came too? I watched as the boys and the girls finally planted themselves on the ground before looking around. However, Matthew instantly bolted for me, causing Diana to jump away in surprise.
Whoa!
Matthew wrapped his arms around me, and I instinctively tensed up from being charged at before taking in his scent and physical form. He was here. I wasn't dreaming. He really came for me, and here he was holding me. Oh my goodness.
Are you okay? Are you hurt?
I'm fine. I almost couldn't believe it. I wrapped my arms around Matthew's torso, pulling him tighter to me as I took in one more whiff of the scent. However, before I could melt into his arms in relief at his presence, he was forcefully dragged backwards. What the?
Hold it! Hold it! Hold it!
Now what?
Whoa!
Huh? I watched as the fairy figure gripped Matthew's hoodie and roughly pulled him away from me with an angered face. Wait, hold on!
Matthew!
Before anyone could react, Matthew spun around and swiped at the fairy. They squeaked and released him, floating higher into the air.
Hands off!
Oh, this is new.
You hands off!
I don't know what's going on. I quickly rushed over and held Matthew's hand, wanting to bring his attention away from the fairy and back to me. I don't know. Kiss him? Question mark? I reached up and grabbed his face, pulling him to me and kissed him. His eyes stared in shock before he melted against my lips and held my head on his hand, kissing me deeper. I closed my eyes in sync with his as I lowered my hands and wrapped them around his shoulders. I was beyond happy to feel him again. At that moment, I didn't even care how he had found me. I was just happy that he was there with me again. Unfortunately, Matthew and I couldn't stay close for long. The fairies shouting caused us to pull apart to look at them.
He has the same aura as the Demon Lord!
Rubbing her head and glaring at the fairy, Diana stepped up, crossing her arms and rubbing her temple.
Well, he is the son of the Demon Lord.
That's not what I meant! I'm saying...
Oh no.
Come on, let's get you home!
Matthew gently took my hand and tugged me towards his brothers. However, this time Diana stepped in front of Matthew.
I'm afraid she can't leave.
And why not?
She's been cursed. She can't leave this plane without dying. But if you wish to kill your bride to bring her back to the demon world, then be my guest.
Matthew glared at Diana and stepped in front of me protectively.
Why should I believe you?
It's true, Matthew. The Demon Lord cursed me, so I can't leave. I placed my hand on Matthew's shoulder, causing him to turn his head and look at me in surprise. His expression morphed from anger to sudden fear.
What? You can't be serious.
We are, but don't worry. We plan to kill the one who cursed her soon enough.
When?
1 week's time.
1 week? What?
Where is this number coming from, Succubus?
We need to fully prepare ourselves for the final stage, which I'm certain will only take a couple of days. We've pinned him into a corner. The Demon Lord will fall.
That's rather bold to assume.
She's right, though.
We can prepare everything in that time frame, right?
And if he does the same and attacks us before then?
He won't.
I watched as Diana walked over and cleared the table of the materials they had gathered for the gate spell, revealing a physical map of the abyssal plains. She pointed to a spot on the map, a peninsula surrounded by water labeled as the Decaying Sea. I'm sorry, Diana.
We'll cast a barrier spell along the edge of the peninsula and around the castle. He and his army won't be able to move from that spot until we break it ourselves, which will be during the siege.
Where would we get the energy needed for that kind of spell?
We won't be using energy.
The other rebel demons in the room suddenly tensed up, staring at Diana in surprise. What was she going to do?
My lady, you're not suggesting...
The Demon Lord has shown how far he is willing to go to win this war. It's only fitting to show the extent we'll go to in response.
As much as I agree with you, this seems a little rash.
What are you guys talking about?
Are they allowed to know?
I plan to put a barrier curse around the Demon Lord's castle and army. It's temporary, so it won't need the blood of 1,000 demons. But it will need the sacrifice of at least one demon life.
And I assume you'll be sacrificing one of my soldiers.
Is this our only option?
There are other options, but they will most likely take a lot of energy to pull off. It just depends on what we want to do. If we want to do this immediately, then the barrier curse is indeed the best option.
I'm not opposed to performing the curse. As rash as it is, it will make our lives easier in the long run.
You expect me to hand over one of my men? My soldiers joined the rebellion to kill the Demon Lord, not to get their throats slit before even seeing the final battle?
It's wrong, but can we really afford to spend any more energy? Diana already spent a lot trying to send the human back.
What is the other option?
The rabbit woman and the fairy moved towards the map and pointed at the peninsula.
We could form tall rock walls around the castle. Box him in. It will take a lot of our energy, but we can recover in that week period.
And what will stop the Demon Lord from tearing down the walls?
I can imbue the walls with holy magic.
The incubi and I looked at him, all of us equally surprised. A demon with holy magic? How?
How the fuck did you get holy magic? You look and smell like a demon.
The guard held up his wrapped hand, letting the beads around it dangle with a sudden motion.
I've had the ability to use holy magic ever since I was taken in by my lady's family. There's no doubt that I am a demon, but I can't recall how I gained this ability.
How is holy magic different from demon magic?
It's white magic. Unlike demon magic, holy magic isn't so finicky. Think of it as warding or dispelling magic. You can't bless air or anything that doesn't have physical form, but you can bless objects to fight back against other forms of magic.
If the walls were blessed with holy magic, the Demon Lord wouldn't be able to escape until we released him.
Why not just trap him forever?
That's idiotic. He would still be a threat regardless. Holy magic doesn't last forever. And stone will crumble eventually.
He's right. We wouldn't be able to keep the walls up forever.
The situation became more and more complicated the more we discussed it. How are we going to go about this?
We can't just sit around and debate this forever. The longer we wait, the more we risk him striking back at us.
But is it worth killing someone to trap him?
When we finally strike, we will lose hundreds, if not thousands, of soldiers anyway. What difference will it make to lose one more life on top of this?
Soulless fuck.
We can still cage him in.
I bit my lip. It was a really tough decision. A curse or a trap? Which was better? Both had their prices, but we had to choose one. From the look of it, no one wanted to speak up, so I felt the urge to say something. Maybe I would be the one who would determine everything. Oh, I'm probably gonna regret this. But which method would be the best choice? I say the curse. Everyone in the room looked at me in surprise as I finally spoke up. Achievement unlocked. An eye for an eye. The Demon Lord had trapped me here with the blood of 1,000 demons. It was only fair to trap him with the life of just one. I feel awful for this. Will the curse work with just one life?
Yes. He won't be able to escape because of its dark magic.
Ah.
Are you sure this is the best choice?
A monster like him won't stop if we box him in. If we have to ensure that he won't be able to do anything while we prepare to fight back. Everyone nodded, most in reluctance, while the others did with confidence. Diana, however, turned to the orc man with a stern face.
As for your reluctance, Sir Brute, we won't be using one of your men.
Well then, who would you use?
At that moment, Diana smirked, sending a familiar shiver down my spine. For a split second, I swore I saw a flash of gold across her visible eye as she replied to Matthew.
A little mongrel who had the nerve to electrocute me in my own castle.
I stared. There really was an imp in the castle? However, my mind released the question to focus on Diana's smirk. Something was off about Diana, and I couldn't put my finger on what it was. When I came to the demon world, I had barely recognized her and didn't expect her kindness. Now, as I was staring at her at that moment, I again realized the woman who had attacked me. I again recognized the woman who had attacked me in the human world. Diana shook her head before crossing her arms and looking directly at me.
So, since you'll be here for a while, we might as well give you names that you can use to refer to everyone here.
Are we getting human names?
Must we?
Diana rolled her eyes, gesturing to each demon, naming them on the fly. Okay.
For the sake of time, we'll use simple names. This is Rabbit, our magic advisor. Sergeant, commander of our armies. Shadow, leader of our assassins. And Faye, our nomadic force ambassador.
Sergeant, I'm a commander, succubus. Shouldn't my name be Commander?
It's easier on the tongue, though, to say Sergeant.
My lady, what shall they call me?
Diana looked at Sarah for a moment before turning towards me, a look of seriousness emanating from her eyes.
You may call him Cero. He is my personal guard, and he is always by my side.
The other demons and Sarah seemed to be surprised. Was Sarah his true demon name? Or would she give me his true name?
Are you sure?
Call him only if your life depends on it. Do not abuse this permission.
Her eyes seemed to burn as she gazed into mine, full of hate, hard intent and warning. I mentally noted her seriousness as she ran a hand through her hair.
Well, now that we have a plan and introductions are out of the way, I believe we can end this meeting. We have a lot to accomplish in 1 week.
What about us? You don't expect us to sit around.
Actually, I do. You all don't belong on the battlefield.
What are you talking about?
I will not take untrained and unarmed beings into a war zone.
Hold on! I interjected, stepping forward and crossing my arms at Diana. She seriously wasn't going to make us stay back while she fought the Demon Lord, was she? That's not fair, Diana. We can fight too. Is this really what we should do? That's not fair, Diana. It wasn't fair at all. I was stuck here, so I should be my choice of whether or not to fight.
I'm only trying to make sure you all get back to the human world safely. I can't expect you all to fight in this war.
Let me and my brothers train then. We're demons, for fuck's sake. We know how to fight.
The boys stared at Diana as she turned her head towards Sam. He was right, though. They knew how to train, so they knew how to fight. If they fought the rebellion, there would be a better chance of winning this war.
You all realize this is a war, correct? You can die here.
We understand completely.
We do as well.
Diana could only stare at our group as we challenged her proclamation. I wrapped my hand around my fiancé's arm, frightened at the idea of participating in a war, but knowing that we needed all the strength we could muster to finish off the Demon Lord. This was the only way that I could go home. Defeated, Diana sighed and rubbed her temples.
Very well. I can't exactly keep you here like prisoners, so it will be up to you if you choose to train for battle. However, I highly suggest just staying here and allowing us to handle it.
I nodded, as did the others. This was really happening. We were going to kill the Demon Lord, and we had 1 week to either prepare for war or wait it out. Diana turned towards me and looked down at my outfit. I had nearly forgotten that I was still in my wedding dress until Diana pointed at my chest.
Lumen Infere, Bellum tabescere, serene.
I stared at her, unsure of why she was speaking in Latin, until I felt the fabric around my body shift and change. I quickly looked down to see my wedding dress morph into an outfit that looked perfect for the demon world. The white top shifted into a long-sleeved oversized tunic with a leather corset and vest, while the bottom part of the gown split and wrapped around my legs, forming into dark leggings. My shoes stretched into long knee-high boots.
Oh wow! That looks really good on you.
I blushed, getting used to the feel of the outfit. The corset wasn't tight, but it was still something new, along with the rest of the garb. Matthew, however, smiled down at me and kissed over my forehead.
You look really cute.
Aw, thank you.
Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to head for the Demon Lord's castle.
Do you plan to shadow travel?
No, I have another method. Don't worry. I'll be back by morning.
Dana looked at Faye and nodded to them as they pressed their lips together in a tight line.
Faye, please escort our guests to the remaining open rooms while I'm gone.
All right.
Set up.
Yes, my lady.
Sarah walked towards Diana and told her out of the room. The other demons, however, looked towards us. They're gonna look at me with shame.
I'll take you to your rooms then.
Thank you. We truly appreciate it.
Thanks, Faye. My mind for a moment wandered to Diana. I remembered her almost evil smirk when we decided to perform the curse. What was she planning to do? Hopefully nothing truly sadistic. The entire experience was not something I expected to go through, especially since it was now interfering with my wedding. I was trapped in the demon world under a curse I couldn't break without the demon lord being killed, and I was unexpected to wait. That's awful. The entire journey to my room became one filled with mild anger within me. At least Matthew was here to help me through this, but I still couldn't help but let the situation sink underneath my skin. This wasn't fair at all. I knew Matthew could sense my anger as he lightly squeezed my hand, which was gently cupped in his as he walked beside me.
Hey, what's wrong?
Tell him? I let out a shaky sigh and looked to him, letting it go. It's just unfair, you know? The whole thing has become a large, complicated mess, and I gritted my teeth and squeezed Matthew's hand back. I didn't want to complain as things were going to be fixed soon, but it was still infuriating to me that I couldn't do anything immediately. Matthew slowly released my hand and wrapped it around my shoulders.
Hey, don't worry about it, alright? Think about it as a vacation or something.
A vacation? Matthew grinned and nodded, hugging me slightly to his side.
Yeah, a vacation to, see new sights?
I couldn't help the amused smile on my face as Matthew tried to make me feel better. It was another reason why he adored him. He did his very best to make sure that I was happy. Despite the crappy situation we were in, I was thankful for that. I wrapped my arm around him and nodded. Thanks, Matthew. Matthew smiled and nodded before kissing my cheek.
You're welcome. Anything for you.
Matthew and I continued to walk down the halls of the castle until we arrived at the same ambassador room I had slept in before. I guess that the room was mine for now. Stepping in, Matthew looked around in slight awe.
Whoa. Awesome digs.
I had to go at Matthew's surprise. It was almost like we had stepped into a hotel on a vacation, except this one was forced on us until the end of a civil war. It was mildly messed up, but it was a situation we had to deal with. I walked over to the bed and sat down, letting out a sigh, feeling the softness underneath me. The bed was still as comfy as last night. Matthew, however, began to walk around the room, taking in the sight of the decor.
This is a really fancy room. I wonder what room the others got.
I smiled, watching Matthew ponder for a moment before replying to his statement. Yeah, apparently this is the open ambassador room. I was able to sleep here when I arrived. Matthew stared at me dumbfounded for a moment before slapping his forehead and shaking his head.
Right. Time's different here. Holy crap, I forgot about that.
Wait, huh? I became confused as what Matthew meant. What did he mean about time being different here? Matthew looked up at me and grinned sheepishly.
Well, how do I explain this without making it confusing?
Matthew rubbed the back of his head and staring at the fireplace before speaking.
Well, you see, time moves faster here compared to the human world. Like, much faster. If I remember right, then I think the time difference is every 5 hours here is 1 hour there? Maybe?
I don't know. I'm not good at math. Wait, huh? So if I was here for a day, then... Matthew took a moment to do the math before nodding and speaking again.
Yeah, that's right. You were gone from the human world for about 5 hours.
Huh. 5 hours? I was astonished. The time difference was really prominent and a little disorienting. Didn't that mean time moved faster here? I was getting confused, holding my head to try and unscramble my thoughts as they collided. Matthew, however, rushed over to me and sat down next to me, hip to hip.
Hey, don't worry about it, okay? We found you, so that's all that matters.
I could only nod before looking at the ground. It was a lot to take in, but at least I wasn't really missing for a day in the human world. However, I was going to be here for a week, so in accordance to the time difference, would I be missing for more than a day? 5 hours equals 1 day. A day and a half, sorta. Or 2 days and something? I don't know. Because it's 35 hours. Or does... No, it's a day and... almost... yeah, and a day and some more. Yeah. How was everyone at home going to react? I could only hope that something was used as a cover to delay the wedding or the like. I looked up to Matthew, now a bit concerned.
Huh? What is it?
What happened while I was missing? Matthew frowned a bit and rubbed his head, running his hand through his fluffy hair as he spoke, staring at his knees.
Well, when you didn't come with the rings, we got kinda worried and tried to call you. When you didn't pick up, we kinda panicked, but Irene and Iridessa decided to rush over to the house to see what had happened. They came back, saying you were gone. We pretty much scrambled to use our magic to wipe everyone's memories, reschedule everything, and use the time to find out what happened.
That's some quick work there. Matthew pressed his lips together, most likely remembering what he felt during my absence. I felt bad, but there was nothing I could have done to stop it. Matthew shook his head and continued, "Oh yeah. So, about that collar around their neck, that was really awkward and weird."
I guess we have to thank Simon for finding you. Without him, we wouldn't have figured out what happened.
Simon's here? Simon? Matthew nodded before stuffing his hand into his pocket and pulling out the infuriating stuffed animal. Simon blinked a couple of times before looking up at me and giggling like he usually did. Simon! Simon jumped from Matthew's hand into my arms and crawled up onto my shoulder, becoming immobile like a doll once he settled between my neck and shoulder. I gave his head a little pat before looking back at Matthew. Well, he was the one that hid the rings. I had to find him.
I know, but after you were taken, he helped us pinpoint where you were, and bam! Here we are.
Oh, well, okay. Matthew chuckled a bit before ruffling some of Simon's fur.
I guess this little furball was useful after all.
Yep. I could only smile before leaning over to kiss Matthew's cheek, making him gasp slightly.
Huh?
At least you found me. Soon we'll be able to go home and get married like we planned. It gave me a little hope to let that thought sink in. Despite the terrible situation we were in, we would soon be able to go home. I was positive we would win this war and everything would work out just fine in the end. Matthew seemed to agree, nodding as well with a small nod, with a smile.
Yeah. We'll go home soon.
Matthew wrapped his arms around me and nuzzled the side of my head, making me softly giggle. My body felt relieved to have him near me, causing me to wrap my own arms around him. My heart was jumping with joy regardless of the situation we were in. Simon took the cue to hop off my shoulder and quickly skitter across the floor and up to the fireplace mantel, resting on it with the decor that set up upon it. Matthew, however, soon released me and fell back onto the bed, feeling its softness.
Man, it's been so long since I felt a demon bed.
So all beds are this comfy in the demon world? What's the difference from a regular bed? Matthew grinned up at me and crossed his arms behind his head, lounging back on the mattress.
Well, demons don't sleep in this world, so we get very comfy beds just so we can lay back and relax on.
Wait, demons don't sleep?
Nah, we're too paranoid that people will kill us in our sleep.
Then how the heck do you function?
Energy and food. As long as we have both, we can pretty much be awake 24/7.
The way that Matthew seemed relaxed about the whole thing made it seem like what? The whole thing made it seem like the being here. I don't know. A part of me was curious on whether or not he liked being in this world more than the human world, but I had to remember, he went to the human world of his own accord. Besides, he was ready to marry me and live his entire life in my world. Matthew stretched and let out a groan before relaxing back on the bedsheets and letting out a small yawn.
Oh, I'm tired. You want to hit the hay?
I nodded, feeling exhaustion run over me, causing me to lie back and cuddle up to Matthew, nuzzling into his shoulder. He chuckled for wrapping his arm around me.
I love you so much. I promise we'll get home soon.
I smiled, kissing his cheek before closing my eyes and drifting to sleep. Tomorrow was going to be a long day. However, as I opened my eyes, I found myself not looking at Matthew or in my bed, but I felt the cold ground beneath me and suddenly something tightly wrapped around my neck. What the? I looked down, seeing my skin dusty and dirty, which only added more confusion. What was happening to me? I reached up and gasped once more as I felt the familiar collar around my neck, a chain dangling from the wrist and running behind me. Oh, that really sucks. I instinctively grabbed the collar, trying to pull it from my neck, but as I did, something yanked the chain connected to it and causing me to fall back, knocking the wind out of me. Oh, that's I turned my head as the chain pulled to see a familiar imp demon glaring down at me and gripping onto my chain. Oh no, it was the same imp demon from the vision Matthew showed me when Diana came around, but how could this be? I quickly grabbed the chain and tried to yank it from his hands, wanting to be free, but found no strength to actually pull it from the imp's grasp. The imp merely cackled and pulled the chain again, making me fall forward onto my stomach. I froze. This is another dream, and I could tell that Matthew was going to be the villain once again. My mind began to panic as I scrambled up to my hands and knees, looking around at the predicament I was in. Blah. I was in a large steel cage. My chain hung between the bars of the hands of an imp guarding my cell. I had no neighbors, nor did I hear anyone else in the space with me. This was definitely a dream, and I needed to wake up before Matthew came around. Who knew what he would do with me? This was a dream after all. I looked around the room slowly, slowing my breath, trying to think logically. What could I do? The first thing was to do something about the chain around my neck. Then I could try and break the door down somehow and be free. Seemed like a good idea. I quickly grabbed the chain again and swiveled it on the ground to be on my bottom, locking my feet against the door and pulling the chain back. I managed to get some purchase, and luckily the imp couldn't manage to pull me forward from my struggle. Oh no. A large bolt of red lightning suddenly traveled down the chain and shocked the collar around my neck, causing me to release a soundless scream. My body became electrocuted in red light and energy, sending waves of pain through every part of me. As he finally stopped, I let out a gasp and fell back on the ground, shaking from the aftermath. My body felt entirely jittery and looks of pain rushed through my nerves from the shock. What the hell? I could barely look over at the imp from the pain I was feeling, seeing him smirk at what he had done. However, as soon as I saw the grin appear on his ugly lips, a foot jammed on the side of the imp's head, causing it to buckle over. Huh?
You fucking pig fawn! What did you do?
My eyes glanced over to see Matthew in his demon form, glaring daggers at the fallen imp with his foot jammed into his cheek. As he looked at me, still angered with a snarl across his expression, I gasped, seeing the familiar cold gold color over his eyes. The evil Matthew had returned. Gingerly, Matthew took up my chain and pulled me to the door, leaning in and keeping the chain beneath his head so he could bring my head as close to him as he could without me being pulled against the bars on the door. Staring into his eyes, I was surprised to feel calm and almost hopeful that maybe this was a different Matthew. One that wasn't cruel and full of evil intent. Then again, he kept me in the cell and didn't release me, so this was a sign that I was wrong. Despite this, he spoke calmly and almost comfortingly.
Did he hurt you?
Of course I nodded. Whatever electrocution the imp had done made me feel like I was dying for a split second. Matthew, in response to my reply, glared at the imp with a deadly pair of eyes, causing the victim in question to slink back against the wall.
I ordered you not to hurt her. If she's hurt, then she can't give me proper energy, and I won't be able to rule this world properly. Do you know how much of a problem that would be?
The imp opened his mouth to protest, but as soon as he did, Matthew formed a knife in the air and checked it into his open mouth. A splash of blood erupting from behind the imp's head as the knife embedded itself in the back of his throat. With a garbled whimper, the imp slowly collapsed to the ground, dying at last. I, however, could only watch, horrified, with my hands over my mouth. What was going on? Matthew turned back to me and pulled my chain slightly, causing me to look back at him with fearful eyes.
There! Now he won't hurt you anymore.
Okay. Usually there'd be someone here. I guess I'm gonna have to use my wits to get out of here, even though I have no wits. Why are you doing this? Let me go. Matthew's face slowly shifted into a cold, sadistic glare.
I would. But how will I know that you won't run away from me?
I began to panic. I wanted to be free. I wanted to run, but Matthew here wasn't going to let me go, and I didn't want to stay in the cell any longer. Despite every fiber in my body wanting me to awaken, I couldn't. I don't know. I don't know. Make me your queen? This was crazy. He had me as a prisoner, a slave to his whim. However, he seemed to care enough about me to kill someone for hurting me. It was worth a shot. Matthew, however, let out almost a bark of laugh.
Me,
Owie.
king of the demon world, marry a human? Like hell I will. Besides, even if I made you a succubus, your energy would be wasted.
My heart broke into pieces, but my anger flared. This was not my Matthew. I gripped to the bars and snarled through them at my captor, imagining the man in front of me as a stranger and not the man I loved. What is wrong with you? Let me go! A violent cackle erupted from Matthew as he leaned close to me, pulling my chain harder to pull me against the door.
That's okay. Get angry. You know what they say. Angry sex is always the best.
Bleh. I snarled even harder, disgusted at his words. This is not the man I loved, nor would he ever be in my dreams. Matthew not only let out a chuckle as he finally drew back and slid his hands up to the end of my chain.
I'm not in the mood to take your energy now. I'll come back another time.
Whatever. I don't want to see your face either. The flash of blue energy, the chain in his hand vanished and reappeared above me, giving me enough slack to let me lie down, but only if I was directly underneath it. I grimaced and pulled at the chain, wanting to still be free from it, but only heard the chuckle of Matthew's cruel sadism as he turned and began to walk away.
You better be prepared when I get back. I've got a world to rule after all. Can't spend all my time making sure you're ready.
A violent quake ran through my body and I began to struggle harder, making him laugh as he left the hall out of my sight. Yeah. Let me go! Already, this sucks. How come I haven't woken up yet? I don't want to be here anymore. I shut my eyes tightly, pulling and tugging as much as I could. Despite it being to no avail, I screamed once again, this time breaking the illusion around me and waking up at last. Okay. Again with a let me go. I don't feel like screaming. I sat up screaming through the air as my hands clasped themselves around my neck. My scream reverberated throughout the room, barely letting me notice Matthew falling out of bed beside me.
Oh!
I quickly looked over at the sound of a hard thump on the ground, seeing Matthew's curly head peek out from over the side of the bed. His hand ran over his hair, ow, my ear, as a pain groan escaped his lips.
Oh.
Oh my god. Ignoring what had just happened to me, I scrambled across the bed and slid off the bed to kneel beside Matthew. Luckily, he wasn't badly hurt, but he rubbed his head, obviously disoriented from the falling out of bed. To add more insult to the injury, Matthew had crawled down from the mantel and began to poke at Matthew with his mini knife. Thankfully, the knife wasn't actually sharp, so all it did was prod and poke at Matthew's skin without drawing blood. Not helping, Simon.
God, Simon! Simon, knock it off!
Matthew flailed his arms, almost knocking Simon away with his hand. Taking the hint, Simon jumped onto the bed and began to hop around on top of it as his own distraction while I looked to Matthew. I'm so sorry. Are you okay?
Huh? Yeah. Yeah, I'm fine. Oh.
Matthew grimaced, stretching his hand and neck before shaking his head and looking up at me, slightly bleary-eyed from sleep.
Are you okay? Or did you have another nightmare?
I looked down at the ground between us, remembering the nightmare I was trapped in. I could only nod, pressing my lips together, causing Matthew to frown.
I'm sorry. Do you want a hug?
Yes. Please. Despite the nightmare, I still loved Matthew and needed him with me. I knew the dreams I was having weren't real, and even if they were trying to warn me of something, Matthew was still the man I was going to be married to. The man I was going to be married to. Matthew smiled softly before slowly onto his knees and hugging me to his body, laying my head on his shoulder. I wrapped my arms around him and closed my eyes, taking in his reassuring scent. As a set of knocks appeared at our door, however, Matthew and I shut our heads in the direction of the sound.
Oi! Time to wake up! We got grub!
Ugh, can you not call it that?
Matthew and I looked at each other before scrambling up onto the bed. Forgetting that Simon was on it, I slid across the bed and sat down, trying to make it seem like I had just woken up, as Matthew tried to crawl over but wound up making Simon release a heavy squeak. Oh.
Ah!
Once again, Matthew flew off the bed and landed on the floor, releasing another shout of pain.
Is everything all right in there?
We're fine! We're fine!
Simon, cackling at Matthew's mistake, scrambled up back onto the fireplace mantel and became a doll once more as I cleared my throat. Come in! As the door opened, Matthew threw himself onto the mattress, placing his head on his hand like he had completely planned to kneel beside the bed as his brothers and their wives entered with plates of food in their hands. Damien and Twyla, the ones who were carrying extra plates of food, stopped and stared at us with raised eyebrows. Damien, of course, looked over at the mantel at Simon before smiling and shaking his head, passing his extra plate to Matthew.
Thanks, bro.
You're welcome, Matthew.
Here you go.
Oh, thank you. Twyla placed her extra plate in my hand and smiled before walking over to an empty space with Damien and eating. On the plates were sliced fruits, bread, cheese, and some sort of jerky. James and Sam, however, were the only ones who didn't start indulging in what was on the menu.
So, we have less than a week to prepare for the Demon Lord.
You know, fuck me, but I'm excited as shit to finally get to kick his ass into the ground.
The other brothers seemed to agree, even Matthew. However, I was stuck on the nightmare I had the night before. I unconsciously rubbed my neck, remembering the feel of the collar around my neck. Doing so caught Iridessa's attention.
Hey, what's wrong? Did you hurt your neck?
I instantly looked up and stared, seeing everyone now look at me in curiosity. I shook my head violently, not wanting anyone to know what had happened. I'm fine! The wives seemed convinced, but they nodded anyway. The boys, however, focused on the battle ahead of us.
So, do we plan on training like we usually do?
That seems to be the best plan. It's been a long time since we've actually fought in a battle.
Have you fought in one before?
The boys, despite the shame in their eyes, nodded slowly in unison.
Part of us living in our father's castle involved receiving the occasional unexpected visitor.
Huh, this is new.
Holy crap, man. I remember one time there was this group that just stormed in and tried to take on the old man, but he sent James to take care of him. I'd never seen James so pissed off before.
That's because they threatened to burn the castle down if I didn't surrender. Obviously, that was out of the question.
Well, Sam, what about you when you got into those fights with the army generals? They weren't too happy about you being so testy with them.
They got cocky and thought they could push me around. Fuck 'em and good riddance.
The more I listened, the more the battle stories seemed more about James, Eric, and Sam. Damien obviously stayed out of fighting, but what about Matthew? I looked to Matthew, seeing him simply eat his food, staring down at his plate. Did he have nothing to add to the conversation? We need to be upfront about this. What about you, Matthew? Matthew looked up at me in surprise, a piece of jerky wedged between his teeth and lips.
Huh?
I fought back, giggling at the sight, but as everyone turned over and looked at Matthew, I relaxed a bit and waited. I was curious to see if Matthew had any stories of his own to tell. To my surprise, Matthew swallowed the jerky in his mouth and shook his head.
No, I wasn't the fighting type. Never have been, really.
I guess that makes me feel a little bit better. My mind flashed back to him fighting Malix and how he managed to not only duck and dodge Malix's gun, but also make Swiss cheese out of the devil in question. Why would Matthew lie? Sam scuffed and spit into the fireplace, making us all look over at him.
What a crock of bullshit, Pipsqueak.
Thank you for pointing this out.
Bullshit? What the hell is that supposed to mean?
Don't fucking play dumb with me. I remember you massacring an entire gang of Vince because they looked at your mom funny. I was the one who had to clean that shit up.
What? Never mind. I suddenly went wide-eyed at Matthew, who in turn stared right at me with a fearful frown on his face. He got into fights here? I guess it was expected of a demon to at least get into one fight in their life, but Matthew in a massacre?
No, it wasn't like that. It wasn't me.
Oh no, I feel bad now.
Like hell it wasn't.
Dude, shut up!
Make me!
I will!
Sam and Matthew jumped out of their seats and marched at each other, slamming their foreheads together and snarling, fire burning in each of their eyes. I quickly rushed up and pulled at Matthew's arm, trying to bring him back to the bed. Matthew, calm down!
Sam, knock it off!
Despite Carrie also pulling Sam's arm, neither of us could pull our incubus away from the other as they battled each other with their eyes. The air in the room became full of tense energy until suddenly both of the boys were swatted over the head. Thank you, James.
Fuck!
Ow!
Or maybe it's Diana, I don't know.
Both of you! That's enough!
Okay, I thought so, it was James. I looked up to see James holding his fist that he used to sock his brothers with a glare painted all over his face. Matthew and Sam looked at their eldest brother, both irritated at being hit, but silent enough to know not to talk back. A moment passed before Sam stood up straight and shook his head, finally allowing Carrie to pull him back to a spot where they could sit down.
Whatever.
Matthew, on the other hand, straightened up and continued to glare at James, almost in defiance. Something sparked in his eyes, something that made me worried, so I pulled his arm back, trying to catch his attention. Hey, come on. Matthew finally looked at me, slowly receding back to his normal gaze, before nodding and rubbing his head over the newly forming bruise while sitting down beside me.
Well, this is an interesting family reunion.
Diana's voice suddenly made all of us turn to the door to see her and Sarah in the doorway, with Diana leaning against the archway. As she pushed off and stepped in, Sarah followed and closed the door.
Can we help you?
Possibly, if you all want to survive this war and go home. Especially you, my dear.
Let me check. Okay, I'm almost gonna stop recording probably in a few more minutes. Diana looked over to me and crossed her arms under her bosom. What did she mean? Diana ran a hand through her hair and looked around the room, pressing her lips into a fine line.
So, about all of you participating in the war, you all obviously need to train.
Everyone nodded in agreement to Diana's statement. While we weren't battle ready, we still needed to at least know how to defend ourselves. Diana, however, looked to me.
You, most of all.
Huh? Me? I was suddenly confused. How come I was the odd one out, and I was to be ready the most? The last thing I remembered about me training was that Diana was against the idea altogether. Diana sighed and rubbed her temple.
Apparently, there are guidelines to breaking this curse. Not only do we have to kill the Demon Lord, but you have to be nearby when it happens for the curse to even break.
That makes no sense. Where did you learn this?
Shadow. He spent the night trying to find alternative ways to break your curse. Unfortunately, we didn't find anything of the sort, but we found the guidelines to breaking it.
Well, it still makes no sense.
Even while it doesn't, it's still better to be safe than sorry. I don't want to kill him and then still have you stuck here because of an error.
I could only sigh and take it in. So I had to be there when the Demon Lord fell. Great. Then I waved her hand dismissively through the air, breaking my potential thoughts.
Anyway, we can't have you dying on the way there, and we can't monitor you when we're in battle. You should at least know how to defend yourself. That's why we've come up with a solution.
Huh? What solution?
Simple. The other rebel leaders and Sarah have agreed that if you'd like a trainer to enhance your abilities, you can train with one of them.
I stared, seeing Sarah step forward with a nod.
Each of the leaders is proficient in a different area of magic and battle strategy, good enough for self-defense. I can't speak for the others, but I can assure you that with Sarah's skill and training methods, you will be well prepared by the time the siege arrives.
Sarah nodded and bowed to me slightly. While I was flattered at the idea, did I really need a trainer? I knew Taekwondo and I at least knew how to defend myself, demon or not. Then again, we were in the demon world where magic was the norm. What would the others teach me? Diana ran a hand through her hair, looking to the side as she listed off each leaders and their skills.
Sergeant is a brute demon, bred from a nomadic tribe. He most likely teach you the ways of the brute demon, using your fists and speed to keep you alive. Shadow is, by definition, a shadow demon, so he'd probably teach you about dark magic, light manipulation, and assassination. Rabbit is a wild magic-based animal demon, using her animal-focused energy as her weapon. She'd probably teach you how to do the same. Fae? I am honestly not sure. I know they can change their size and use elemental magic as well, but to be honest, I do not know what they would teach you.
Sticking with who I met first, or not really met, but who I encountered in this one, I'm gonna go with Rabbit. I know some people wanted me to do Sarah, but I might do that in an alternate one. For now, I'm just gonna choose Rabbit. Diana nodded. Rabbit was sweet, but I could tell that she was the wisest of the bunch. She'd be able to show me some ways to use the earth and defend myself. She was definitely the one. With that, Diana turned onto her heel and left the room.
Finish eating. Afterwards, you should start training.
Everyone in the room nodded their affirmation as Diana and Sarah left.
Well, it looks like we'll be busy for the next couple of days.
This'll be fun.
Man, training's gonna suck.
It'll be worth it, though.
Damien's right.
As we all finished eating, everyone left to either train or do things on their own. I left to start my own work, determined to be prepared for what was to come. The Demon Lord wasn't going to win. I wouldn't let him. And that's where we will leave it off for today. Anyways, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye!